hand-drawn bitmap 2D backgrounds, a handwritten story, new mechanics never seen before. Well, after almost 25 years, even a blind man can see the original Alone in the Dark is showing its age. Nevertheless, it kinda set the standard for survival horror games and was praised as groundbreaking by many when it was released. As someone who's too old to be young, but was too young to even play video games at that time, I will try my very best to figure out why it was such an influential game.
Let's go!
We'll dive into my embarrassing gameplay in a minute. I can't do anything. No! Oh, I died. But first we basically have to thank this guy for the invention of the horror survival genre, which spawned classics like Resident Evil or Silent Hill. At his time at Infogrames, he was fascinated by 3D. The issue was the tech was still in its infancy at the time, but Mr. FREDERIC RAYNAL wanted to create something scary, and due to hardware limitations it had to be with few polygons. Before he began working on Alone in the Dark, he ported a game called Alpha Waves for the Atari ST, a kind of 3D exploration game with platformer elements, which was the first ever video game to use 3D to 3D object interactions, such as objects bouncing off of each other. He ported Alpha Waves to MS-DOS, which gave him the experience necessary to create Alone in the Dark and set an important cornerstone in the game's development. Now, basic shapes are not inherently scary at all, so the whole thing needed some more meat on the bones to scare the shit out of the 90s kids. He ended up using hand-drawn bitmaps as backgrounds and even created his own 3D modeling tool to achieve the level of detail and horror the game was striving for. I really don't know much about programming myself, let alone programming in the 90s, but that sounds pretty insane to me. But the technology of home computing was advancing so rapidly that the game had to scale across a wide array of different systems. This also allowed Infogrames, however, to add new fancy tech in the sound department as well. This, of course, added another layer of scary horror vibes when, for instance, opening doors or walking across wooden floors under an eerie creak. All this creates a surprisingly coherent look and feel. While I personally prefer 2D games with all of its pixel details from that era, it works pretty good here. Your character, all enemies and items are the only 3D objects as far as I can tell in the game. Everything else are these 2D hand-drawn bitmaps. Albeit, I gotta admit, in some situations monsters can seem a bit out of place, but it still blends in very well. You could argue one of the main characters is the mansion itself. While the first couple of minutes being up in the attic are linear, it opens up quite significantly afterwards and lets you go different paths, giving you the feel of freedom. The fixed camera lets you see exactly what was intended by the developers. Some camera placements spoiled the occasional jump scare and the already wonky controls get more confusing for that reason, but somehow it feels like a playable Paranormal Activity or Blair Witch Project movie, just years before these were even released. You really are bound to get stuck if not paying attention to the environment, especially to items like books and notes, which give necessary hints on how to solve puzzles or make progress in general. But graphics and sound alone won't make anyone scream on its own. Imagination is a powerful tool. RagnarRox was well aware that a strong background story would add a sense of wonder. To put it in his own words, you enter a house and you just have to escape the house alive. Simple but effective. And what brought us to this mansion and what makes it so difficult to escape is a mystery in the beginning. The introduction is just a plain one-pager without lots of context. We'll have to find out what's exactly going on in the story here by just, well, entering said house. And after choosing either a male or female protagonist, the game and its engine showed off what it was capable of with the fully in-engine rendered intro sequence in real time. This beginning bit alone must have made kids at the time think about wearing their pampers tight as your chosen character slowly enters the gloomy mansion. You could already sense the threats behind every corner. This single iconic shot from the window with this creature and its gruesome fingers lingering in the frame as we slowly walk into our doom had me shivering. The game really took its time to get going slowly before unleashing the full horror of its mansion upon the player. Well, and for whatever reason, our character went straight to the attic of the mansion and you get dropped right into the action without knowing anything about the controls. Oh, what do I do? How do I run? Can I run? Ah, I tapped from the game. Oh no. Oh my god. What's happening? No, I can't. Oh my god. I need to restart. Okay, take it. Okay, for some reason I could run. How did I run? Enter is inventory. Actions, fight, open search, fight. With spacebar he's doing some yoga moves. So pressing spacebar and left and right cursor, a left and a right hook. Man, these controls are wanky. Okay, where am I? Oh, the creature's coming. Oh god. Okay, I'm gonna fight him. Ah. Sounds like he's slapping him in the face. It's hilarious. Holy moly, that's more action than I anticipated. Every time I want to like change what I'm doing with the space bar, I need to go into the menu. Holy moly. What the fuck is happening? You find an old Indian cover. Okay, take it. Why there's so many zombie creatures? This is hilarious. Man, this is so much action. I thought this was more relaxed. There's a certain level of curiosity with these older games when they didn't explain every gameplay mechanic in its first 8 minutes. At least that's how I feel like. You could argue that at least giving some context for the controls would make the game much more convenient to play without turning its difficulty upside down completely. On the other hand, games back then came with a full manual usually, which explained the controls in the background a little. In this case, the key bindings aren't too messy though, a little all over the place, but I got the hang of it fairly quickly. And the first 2 encounters gave a pretty good impression at how unforgiving games from that era were. Alone in the Dark was no exception. There are just no hints, no tooltips, it's trial and error and the occasional text snippet that gives you a rough idea of what you're supposed to do. Okay, you can scroll. Okay, so I have a bow. There's also like nothing, right? These old games are insane. You just get dumped into the game and then it's like do something. Like there's no overlay, like no text overlay telling you like even the controls. I don't know if back then you just had to know the controls or they were all the same across games from the same genre, but oh no, what's the scream? That's also the reason why I was completely clueless in the beginning. You were able to barricade the window, for example, to stop the monster from entering in the first place, and only found out about it later when researching for the video.
Stupid.
Even mechanics like these are still used to this day, like when using shelves or something to stop incoming threats in Resident Evil. Sometimes it's also just using logic, however, like filling up the lamp with an oil can, just makes sense. Or keeping an eye out on unusual inconsistencies in the levels to spot traps.
It's a trap.
Unfortunately, the shooting was just as wonky as the melee combat. Oh, how do I shoot? Okay, I don't know what I did, I shot somehow. It all comes down to who's gonna get stun locked first, you or the enemy. But in its first 5 to 10 minutes alone, the game introduced so many concepts which are still present in modern survival horror games. The scarcity of ammunition and healing items, unexpected scripted events to keep the player moving. One example. Entering one of the first rooms and the camera suddenly switches to this window view, which instantly leads to being jumped by a monster. It was also a pretty clever workaround for the hardware limitations as well, I guess. Instantly jumping me. Oh my god. No! 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 I'm trapped! I can't do anything! No! Oh, I died. Ooh, that scream. Holy shit, this is difficult. Man. It's not just horror sunshine and survival rainbows, in my opinion. Sure, the game is 30 years old and the word clunky to describe navigating the levels isn't even close enough. Okay, he is opening doors automatically, I just need to go there. And just as picking up items, I guess that wasn't an option to have like another option. You're never quite sure where your character's slaps or shots are gonna go, and while the hand-drawn backgrounds feel moody, it's quite hard to tell what drawer or shelf you are searching right now. Having to go back into the menu every time to even change the action you want to perform is cumbersome too. I'm sure even with the limited possibilities back then, this could have been solved differently. And even in the beginning, the puzzles can turn into pure trial and error, like someone please explain to me what makes these two scream themselves into their own death by just placing down a mirror. Maybe I'm just stupid and I don't get it. But the combat is really what got me frustrated heavily. The game just opened up, but it had some fun instant death traps like these. Oh, hello, who are you? Oh my god, she's gonna attack me, right? Oh no, take this! Oh, I'm sorry! What the hell? That was like a one hit. Oftentimes it was impossible to get first strike and I got stun locked immediately. Sometimes I got to slap enemies first, but they were unbeatable, like this mouse who decided to become invincible for some inexplicable reason. Take this. Take this. Die. Ugh. So I had only played for 45 minutes, and I had the option of being killed by a giant squid in the bathtub, a monster rabbit stun-locking me, homing access, or a dress-turned-killer disco lights. That was kind of frustrating. Some other ideas FREDERIC RAYNAL seemingly definitely needed to have in the game, like later sections where you are completely, well, alone in the dark, are probably the least favorite and excruciating parts. Some ideas, even if being part of the original vision, just shouldn't be put in a game maybe if they simply don't work, I guess. The game sure did kinda invent classic horror survival games and modern takes on it alike. As far as I could research, it was the first game to use 3D models superimposed in hand-drawn backgrounds, which was used in Resident Evil later too. Without it, it's hard to imagine what following horror games would have looked like. Even for the time though, pure gameplay speaking, it seems to be a janky mess. Hitboxes just don't really make sense, and the player is supposed to save scum to rerun sections again and again in pure trial and error. Sure, games didn't have all the comfort features and weren't as easy as today in general, I get it. But the first Alone in the Dark is a prime example of, while having great ideas and mechanics, that pure execution can make a difference in how the game feels. Nevertheless, the sheer graphical fidelity for the time was jaw-dropping, I guess. Combined with its audio design and in some parts open exploration, it can't be underestimated how influential Alone in the Dark was. It may be a harrowing experience to play nowadays for someone not from that time like me, but it certainly was an interesting journey back in time, when games try to evolve our favorite hobby.
These days, I leave my letters unopened. Bills and threats to send in the receivers just ruin my day.